everyone. This is a video about worrying about the person behind when you're driving, and this is a very common and normal thing to happen for learners. They're always worried about the person behind. I've never met a student who's not worried about the person behind, but everybody goes through their own journey about releasing and disconnecting from the worry of the person behind. And sometimes it takes longer for students. If they've got a certain type of personality, like people pleasing, for example, it's going to take that type of person to release from worrying about the person behind. Now, worrying about the person behind is all part of the process, but in the situations where you're worried about the person behind, it can make you drive too fast, right? So the student may have just turned left and right and maybe, got onto a main road for the first time, and we haven't got the skill level to go quickly yet. But the student will be like, I'm on the road and I need to look like I'm a normal person, and I'm going to drive like up to the speed limit immediately, even though they haven't got the skill level to then change down for turn lefts, change down for turn rights, or change down for roundabouts and other hazards. So the student is more focused on looking normal, instead of relying on the big L that's on the top of the car, which is what it's for, right? We're telling everybody that we're learning to drive. If people have got a problem with that, really, you've got to understand that how else can we communicate with somebody? We are learning how to drive, yeah? If your driving instructor is doing it properly, then they should be tiptoeing you onto the main road anyway. So problems, like you can get back into a little nursery place quickly if you need to. But issues that can come from worrying about the person behind is definitely driving too fast. And then the problem with that is if the student hasn't been in the car enough, then this can add serious problems to bends, turns, roundabouts and complex junctions. So one thing that could happen is that you could be bombing up to something to make the person behind you think that you're normal and you should be on the road. But then when you get to the roundabout, you are unable to then change down because you haven't got the skill level for that. And then you might then enter the roundabout and go, well, I can't handle it, so I'm just going to go straight in, and I can't, actually do this skillfully, and enter the roundabout at the wrong time. If you are with a driving instructor, clearly they're going to be able to control that situation, and they're going to go, I'm just going to take control here. They'll slow you down and make the situation safe for you. But if you're in your own car, your accompanying driver can't help you with that, right? Of course, because they haven't got a means to slow the car down. So they may resort to shouting at you to tell you to stop, which therefore creates that energy in the car, which is quite hard for both of you, right? Stay in the subjects that you can do. Very carefully stay in the subjects. If you're learning to drive with somebody else and a driving instructor, be careful, stay in the zones that you can do. Try not to allow yourself to be pushed forward by a accompanying driver who doesn't quite understand that you haven't got the skill level for certain things, because things can happen if you're worried about the person behind. Another thing that could happen if you're coming up to a junction or hazard and you're scared about the person behind is, again, you may be approaching way too quickly, and then you are aware that the junction is dangerous, so then you may slam on your brakes, and that can be dangerous because the person behind thought that you were a confident, knowledgeable driver because your speed is like normal, if you see what I mean. But then when you get to the hazard, you can't cope with the hazard because we're not at that skilled level yet. You slam the brakes on because you know that you need to think and work stuff out, and then you possibly could have a car going into the back of you. Yeah, that could transpire or come out like that. Yeah. Another thing that could happen is that you could stall multiple times. Yeah, because there's a queue of people behind you. You had to give way to somebody, or you had to stop for some reason or whatever. And then when you find the biting point, you're trying to rush the clutch, and rushing the clutch just makes you stall. So you want to go quickly because you've got a line of people behind you, but you do it quickly and then you stall, and then you have to repair it, and then you've got to turn the car on, and then you stall, and then you stall, and you stall because you're going into panic mode. You just need to accept, guys, that you are a learner, and you just need to go, do you know what? I'm going to rely on the fact that I've got this L on the top of my car, and people need to accept that I'm a learner and I'm going to take time. The person behind is going to be more likely to be happy with you if you just take that little bit longer to pull away and you do it successfully on the first pull away. If you panic and try and lift the clutch quickly and stall repeatedly, the person behind now needs to wait extra time, yeah? And they're going to have to really sit there and wait for it. Whatever you do, don't look at the person's face. I mean, what are you going to get from looking at the person's face? You're not going to get anything. Look at the vehicle, look at the object that's behind you. The reason why we need to check on that object still by using our mirrors is to see if they're overtaking us. If they've lost patience with your multiple stalls, they're going to start overtaking you, and a long line of people can now start overtaking you because they want to get past the learner who can't control the car yet. That's going to happen. So we need to look at the object behind to see if the object is overtaking us. Don't look at their faces, guys. Give up on looking at their faces. I gave up years ago. I never look at people's faces. They're like, Roz, I saw you the other day. You were driving and I was waving at you and you didn't see me. Yeah, I never look at people's faces in cars. Never. It's just, I gave up absolutely years ago. If my friends see me in the car and they've waved at me, I never see them because I don't recognize people to be in cars. I recognize cars as objects and lights and movements and stuff like that. There's not really a human being in the car for me, and for you it's almost like you need to do that as well. Don't look at the person's facial expressions or whatever. Give up on that. Look at the car. Is it overtaking? What's the position of the car? What are the wheels? Where are the wheels facing and stuff like that? Another time that it can be very difficult if you're worried about the person behind, and it can be dangerous, is if you're in meeting traffic situations where there's a parked car on the left-hand side. If there's a parked car on the left-hand side and there's oncoming people, the oncoming person has priority, and it's extremely likely that you're going to have to stop because of normal priority rules. If you've got a line of people behind you and you're scared about stopping the person behind you, then you're going to get yourself into all sorts of trouble with the parked car. You're either going to stop way too late and you're going to be a Rizzler paper away from the parked car, or you're going to try not to stop and you're going to try and go through gaps which either steal priority or it's not safe enough for you to go through that gap, and your driving instructor may stop you and go, we need to give way at this point. And again, it's just because you're worried about the person behind. You just need to go, I'm a learner, yeah? And also, this is the rules of the road. There's a parked car on the left. I need to put my crown on and I need to be the person who stops the traffic because that is a normal thing to do. If there's a parked car on my side of the road, I stop at least a car length, maybe even 2 car lengths away from the parked car, because that is the rules, that is what you do. If the person behind you was in front of you, they would stop you because that's the normal rules of the road, to give way to the oncoming person. Now, I know that I'm making this sound like all blasé. I know how difficult this is. Every learner that I've ever met goes through this process. And like I said at the beginning of this video, everybody's release of the person behind, the disconnect of worry about the person behind, is a different length. How long's a piece of string? I don't know how long it's going to take for you. Some people never lose it. You may get better at it, but some people never lose it at all and they can get themselves into all sorts of trouble. You need to disconnect your worry about the person behind. They may have had a bad day. It doesn't matter if you're driving all right. They want you to go faster. If you had somebody behind you and you were doing 30, let's just say, right, because the conditions of the road allowed you, if they're in a bad mood and something terrible has happened to them, maybe they're tailgating you, right, and they want you to do 35. So let's just say that you've decided to break the law and do 35 to make the person behind you feel better, right? It's not going to work anyway. But let's just say there's a speed camera. You're going to get the ticket. You're the one first. You go through the speed camera. The light's gone off for you. You've got the ticket and the fine, right? And also you're breaking the law, and that's unsafe for your stopping distances for other hazards, right? But even if there wasn't a speed camera, when you do 35, the person behind's not going to be happy about that. They're going to push you to do 40. So you'll do 40, and then they won't be happy with that either. And then they're going to push you again to do 45 because they're in a bad mood about something, right? Whatever it is, If you feel really bad about someone's behaviour behind you, pull up on the left, let them overtake you and get them out of your life forever. Once they've overtaken you, that's it, they've gone, right? I had a tailgater the other day and me and my student were driving and I thought, this guy's really annoying, right? So I decided to turn my student left on purpose because we were being tailgated and I didn't want my student to be under that pressure. So I just thought, do you know what, I'm going to turn us left. And then when I turned the student left, that person's not in our life anymore, right? We can get on with our own life and we can do something else. Now, I know that we haven't always got the luxury to go somewhere else, but you possibly could pull up on the left and get rid of them that way and then continue with yourself afterwards, right? But you just have to, you know, if you consider the road as it is, who worries about the person behind in the long run, yeah? Who worries about that? And you just think learners worry about the person behind. So when you are a driver, you're less worried about the person behind, about how it's going to make you act. Yeah. You do need to be careful about what the behaviour of the person behind is. Are they going to overtake you? What are they doing at speed changes? You know, if you've got a faster speed limit in front of you and you've been doing 30 and it's going to be 60, you need to be worried about their behaviour. Are they going to overtake you? So in that sense, you need to be aware of people's behaviour, but you don't want to be pressed to make your drive different because someone's behind you. The moment that you feel that you're driving in a different way to what you would normally be, if there's someone behind you, you're being pressurised by the person behind. And it could be because they've just been dumped by their girlfriend or boyfriend. It could be because they've just lost their job. There's nothing that you can do, and it may not have anything to do with you. Even if they were swearing their head off, it may not be anything to do with you. They may have just had the worst day of their life, and there's no way that you can make that person feel better. And it may not even be personal. It may just be because they have just had the worst experience of their life, and now they need to drive somewhere and you've just been caught up in the firing line, you know. And, you know, hopefully, you know, you can talk to your driving instructor about it and they can help you with the feelings that come up there. But, you know, you've got to think to yourself, who beeps a learner? I mean, really, if you're driving behind a learner and a learner's making mistakes, you've got to think about what type of person would beep a learner. I mean, how else can we explain that we're learning to drive? We've got a learner sign on the top. We're basically saying that we haven't passed a test yet because we don't know everything yet. So the mentality of somebody who beeps a learner is quite interesting when you think about it. Because, I mean, who beeps a learner? I mean, it's quite an interesting concept when you think about it logically. It's like they can win the fight every time because you're a learner. What? Anyway, so yeah, just put your crown on a little bit more and try and do things for yourself. Try and act in the safest way possible to the conditions, you know. And the longer that you hold on to this worry about the person behind, probably the more driving lessons that you're going to have, because it is something that you need to release from. And some people are quicker at it than the others. Some people go, nah. I mean, some of my students like, I don't care. I don't care that I've just been beat. I don't care that this has just happened to me. And I always think, wow, it's amazing. Like, I'm quite impressed really that you can just release so quickly. But then other students, they will keep it for an extremely long time. Yeah, I remember one student in particular, we were coming up to a parked car and we'd had a huge conversation about it at the beginning of the lesson. She was worried about the person behind, what we're going to do. So, and to spoke it all through. And then we came up to a parked car and I said, who's got priority? She said, oncoming people. And I said, yep, okay, good. And I said, what are you going to do here? And she said, I'm going to stop. And even though that conversation had taken place, we still didn't stop. I stopped the car. Even though we'd had that discussion at the beginning, even though we saw the car coming, even though she said, I'm going to stop, we still didn't stop because there was someone behind that she was putting to the top of the list. The oncoming person is the VIP. The oncoming person is the person who, the crash is in front of you. You have to pay for the crash in front of you. If the person behind crashes into you, it's much more likely that they're going to pay for your damages because they haven't kept good following distance, yeah? So it's more likely that the person would pay for you if they go into the back of you. So you need to think, the crash is in front of me. That's the most important thing. Yes, I need to know if people behind me are overtaking me or behaving in a certain way, as in their car behaviour. But the crash is in front of you, yeah? So look ahead, yeah? Anyway, I hope this makes sense. Happy New Year, everyone. I'm going to get these videos back on track now and start releasing videos again more regularly. All right, guys, nice to see you here. Thank you for being here, and I'll see you on the next one.